Joining me now is Ambassador Mohammed Ibrahim from the Amnesty International. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Your latest report on death penalty in sub-Saharan Africa is attributing the reduction in the death penalty to Nigeria. Can you expatiate on that?
Well, there has been a massive, sharp drop in the number of death sentences in Nigeria, because if you recall, in the military, about 66 were their death sentence were commuted, and we have about other 45 those people who have been sentenced to death, but the sentence has been commuted. So in all, we have about 121 people whose sentence has been commuted. So that sharp drop have also contributed significantly, to the drop in the number of those on the death row in sub-Saharan Africa.
With what you've just explained now, does that raise any hope that Nigeria could abolish the death sentence anytime soon?
Well, that's what Amnesty International has been campaigning for, the abolition of the death penalty. We hope Nigeria will join the other countries in the world that have abolished the death penalty. But in the short term, even if it's a moratorium, that will be an improvement.
One of the things I've always wondered about is the fact that you have countries that still haven't abolished the death row, and of those countries you often hear that there are Nigerians also on death row there. In fact, it appears that most of these countries have a few of their citizens on death row, and most of them are foreigners, often foreigners. And one would wonder, why would you ask a country who's having her citizens executed in other countries to abolish the death penalty?
Well, two things. One, most of the Nigerians who are on death row abroad are in Southeast Asia on drug charges. A few of them have been executed, like in Indonesia last year. About 5 Nigerians had been executed. The irony of it is, when we are campaigning against the death penalty in Nigeria, asking the Nigerian government to abolish death penalty, and with very little success. Ironically, anytime a Nigerian is to be executed abroad, you find a huge campaign by Nigerians that the Nigerian government should intervene, and the Nigerian government has been intervening. So probably it will make our case much easier if we also abolish the death penalty at home.
But it is a law of the land.
Yes, but laws can be changed.
What would you say in the case of those who have been convicted of participating in acts of terrorism? Would you still advocate that the death sentence shouldn't be used in those cases?
Amnesty International is against the death penalty in all cases, in any circumstances. Amnesty International stands against the death penalty. This is the major message in our campaign, that the death penalty doesn't serve as a deterrent to any criminal situation.
Can you throw more light into that, the fact that the death penalty does not serve as a deterrent?
Well, there are many research. Research is carried out in many countries, in Europe, in the Americas, and even our experience in Nigeria. Let me start by Nigeria. Many people who are old enough will recall that in the late 70s and early 80s, when Nigerians were armed robbers were executed at the bar beach, in football pitch, etc. The armed robbers also became extremely ruthless. They were also killing their victims and even eyewitnesses. And it's just crime begets, crime, violence begets violence. And when that was reduced or stopped the public execution, there was a significant drop also in the armed robbery cases. In the United States, which Nigeria has, a similar constitution, or there are states that have abolished the death penalty. There are others who still carry execution. And the research has shown that cases of murder are more in those states that are carrying out executions than those that have abolished the death penalty. I'm sure you can replicate this in many countries.
So what would Amnesty International suggest as the punishment for murder and now terrorism, which is on a very wide scale as we speak?
We are against the death penalty. People could be given alternative. Long-term imprisonment in some cases to the criminal is worse than the death penalty, because like in the case of fanatics, religious fanatics, who are really looking forward to death, to be martyred. For them, killing them is like answering their prayers. So the more you kill, the more will join the queue, wanting to die, to go to paradise. And I hope we realize that in Nigeria.
But then one of the arguments that have been made by those that are advocating the death penalty be sustained is that in Nigeria, for instance, we have a big problem with prison congestion. And if that is the case, they say that there's no point having to put all these people in prison. Where is the space? That's one of the arguments. What would you say about that?
I don't think this is a logical argument. So you just execute? I don't think. But let me remind you, there was a national study done in 2004 in Nigeria on the death penalty. And the unanimous view of those on that panel was that a system that would like to take life must first give justice. Our criminal justice system is still weak and faulty. A lot of people have found themselves on the death row because they are poor. They haven't had the opportunity of getting the best lawyers. We are seeing cases here where people go to court with close to 100 very senior lawyers to defend them. But the poor ones, at best, they will get the legal aid counsel.
Well, I will ask you to hold right onto that thought while we go on a short break. And when we return, we will continue the discussion on the death penalty and then how the Nigerian criminal justice system can step in.
Nigeria is certainly moving towards the reformist philosophy of administration of criminal justice. And that's why you find that in the new Act of 2015, that's the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, emphasis is now placed on non-custodial punishments. So we are even moving faster from death penalty to even discourage long prison terms.